It was strange. Two hydroacoustic monitoring stations, 4,000 kilometers apart, recorded the same thing: a violent acoustic anomaly erupting from the South Atlantic seafloor at 10:31 on November 15, 2017. The Argentinian submarine ARA San Juan had gone missing. The audio signature should have been unmistakable. Something had just detonated 900 meters underwater with the force of half a ton of TNT. But something even odder was about to be heard. It seemed impossible, but 3 days later, U.S. Navy sensors picked up rhythmic metallic banging from the deep. Tap, tap, tap. The deliberate hammering of an SOS against steel. One of the sounds was a lie. ARA San Juan S-42 entered Argentine Navy service on November 19, 1985, a Cold War weapon forged from German precision and national ambition. Built by Thyssen-Nordseewerke in Emden, she was one of only 2 TR-1700 class submarines ever completed. The original 1977 plan envisioned 6 subs, 2 TR-1700s from Germany, 2 more assembled in Argentina, and 2 smaller TR-1400s. But political instability, budget cuts, rampant inflation, and economic collapse throughout the 1980s and 90s gutted the country's shipbuilding capacity. Technical complexity outpaced domestic infrastructure, and only the 2 German-built TR-1700s, San Juan and her sister ship ARA Santa Cruz, were delivered. The TR-1700 design gave Argentina one of the most advanced diesel-electric submarines of the era. While externally similar to German Type 209s or French Augusta-class boats, San Juan was faster, larger, and better armed. 4 MTU diesel engines fed a Siemens electric motor, powered by 8 massive Varda battery tanks. San Juan could hit 25 knots submerged, fast enough to outrun most surface warships in short bursts. Her 6 bow-mounted torpedo tubes were served by a hydraulic ram system that could reload in under a minute, giving her sustained firepower in fast-moving underwater engagements. She carried up to 22 torpedoes, including SST-4s, which were wire-guided and designed for long-range anti-ship strikes, and Mark 37Cs, legacy weapons that used passive acoustic homing to track submarines. Her sensor suite was advanced for a diesel-electric boat. At the center was the Dutch-built Sinbad's fire control system, which processed sonar data and computed real-time firing solutions. This digital brain coordinated inputs from her onboard sensors and streamlined targeting, even in cluttered underwater environments. For long-range detection, San Juan relied on a German CSU sonar array, capable of both active and passive tracking. A French DUUX-5 passive sonar added close-range precision, while the surface search Calypso radar scanned for aerial and ship-based threats, keeping the crew informed above and below the waterline. She wasn't built for global deployment like US or Soviet nuclear boats, but she didn't need to be. Her job was to dominate the South Atlantic's coastal zones, stealthy, fast, and hard to detect in hostile waters. In 1994, she demonstrated this lethality during Fleet X-294. Slipping past US destroyers, San Juan penetrated the defensive screen undetected and delivered a simulated torpedo strike on the flagship USS Mount Whitney. In warfighting terms, she'd won, clean and quiet. She repeated this performance in other multinational exercises, including Unitas and Gringo Gaucho ops with US carrier groups. In war games, she punched well above her weight, often slipping past larger navies with ease. By the early 2000s, San Juan was aging fast. In 2008, she entered a full midlife refit at the Sinar shipyard in Buenos Aires. Delayed by financial instability, the overhaul took 5 years. Her hull was cut clean in half, a high-risk procedure that exposed all her internal systems. Technicians logged over 500,000 labor hours, replacing major components, including her 4 MTU diesels and battery banks. She returned stronger, cleaner, and theoretically ready for another decade underwater. Her final missions were far from mock battles. Patrolling Argentina's exclusive economic zone near Puerto Madryn, she hunted illegal fishing vessels and monitored foreign ships in contested waters, often near the Falklands. It was silent, unseen work. In early November 2017, ARA San Juan took part in a live-fire naval exercise off Tierra del Fuego, which ended with the sinking of the decommissioned destroyer Comodoro Somellera as a target. After wrapping up the war game and hosting a rare public tour in Ushuaia, The submarine slipped back beneath the surface and headed north toward her home port in Mar del Plata. She never made it. On November 15th, all communications ceased. 2 days later, the Argentine Navy confirmed what everyone feared. San Juan was missing. Last contact had placed her 200 nautical miles southeast of San Jorge Gulf. After that, nothing. No signal, no trace. Just silence where a submarine used to be. All men and women were on board, including Eliana Krawczyk, the nation's first female submarine officer, a pioneering figure whose career symbolized the Navy's modernization efforts. The mathematics of survival were brutal. Oxygen on board was limited, no more than 7 days submerged, meaning time was already slipping away. President Mauricio Macri shifted his operations to Chapat Malal, a government residence and naval facility near Mar del Plata, to take command of the crisis firsthand. At the base, families waited in anguish, clinging to any fragment of news, while mental health teams worked to keep panic at bay. Search coordinators immediately activated the International Charter on Space and Major Disasters, calling in satellite help from around the globe. The world's eyes turned toward this desperate hunt in the South Atlantic. Initial sparks of hope flared, and satellite phone signals were detected, thought to come from San Juan's emergency beacon. But the signals turned out to be false. Meanwhile, the ocean itself was against them. Towering 8-meter waves hammered the search zone, pushing ships and planes to their operational limits and blinding sonar arrays with chaotic acoustic interference. As hours turned to days, the Argentine Navy's tone shifted. This wasn't a delay. This was a crisis. Oxygen supplies were vanishing. Heavy seas likely kept ARA San Juan trapped deep below, where no rescue could reach in time. The U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon, a long-range maritime patrol and anti-submarine aircraft equipped with advanced sonar and acoustic sensors, detected rhythmic banging, regular metallic sounds like crew tapping against the hull. Argentine naval vessels, including corvettes and patrol ships, converged on the area. Families waiting on shore dared to hope. But acoustic analysis terminated that hope. The sounds weren't crew signals. They were marine life, distant echoes misread in desperation. Still, the search effort became one of the largest in peacetime naval history. Over 30 ships, aircraft, and helicopters from more than a dozen nations joined the operation, scouring nearly 500,000 square kilometers of ocean, an area larger than California. The weather gradually calmed, with skies brightening and seas settling. Sonar scans sharpened, revealing details hidden by earlier turbulence. A U.S. reconnaissance plane reported a heat signature 70 meters deep, 300 kilometers off Puerto Madryn. The Argentine corvette ARA Drummond sped toward the location. Meanwhile, a British ice patrol ship that operates in Antarctic and Southern Ocean waters reported spotting 3 flares, orange and white, the standard maritime distress signal. Again, false alarms. The flares turned out to be atmospheric distortions, light bending through the air, creating illusions on the horizon. The heat signature detected by sonar was unrelated to the submarine, likely a natural thermal anomaly. The ocean remained silent, withholding any trace of the missing vessel. Then, attention turned to something more chilling. A nuclear test monitoring station on Ascension Island in the South Atlantic and another in the remote Crozet Islands in the southern Indian Ocean had detected a violent underwater acoustic event near the submarine's last known location. This sensitive data was quietly passed to Argentina through the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. It wasn't a nuclear detonation, but the signal matched a powerful, sudden explosion, consistent with something large rupturing deep underwater near San Juan's last known position. At first, the Navy didn't disclose it, not to the public, nor even to all their own officers. When the news finally broke, it provoked fury. Valuable time may have been wasted chasing false leads, while officials kept crucial data under wraps that could have shifted the search's direction and urgency. By then, more nations had joined. Brazil's Valinto Perry, equipped with advanced submarine rescue vehicles and deep-diving rescue chambers, arrived to bolster efforts. Russia deployed its Tu-142 maritime patrol aircraft, extending the search range with long-endurance surveillance. Crews from the U.S. Navy's P-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft and the UK's HMS Protector joined, alongside teams from Chile, Germany, and Peru. Over 4,000 personnel worked around the clock in shifts, coordinating sonar searches, rescue drills, and recovery planning amid harsh South Atlantic conditions. ISMERLO, the International Submarine Rescue Coordination Body, formed after Russia's Kursk disaster in 2000, directed operations across fleets and time zones. But as November wore on, the South Atlantic began to turn. Winds gusted past 100 kilometers per hour. Storms shredded sonar coverage. Progress stalled. Then, the Argentine Navy obtained part of San Juan's last transmission from the submarine's automated systems and relay logs, recovered during early monitoring of its communications. On November 27th, they finally shared this information publicly. It seemed a leak through the snorkel had allowed seawater to flood the forward battery compartment. An electrical fire broke out. The crew managed to extinguish it, isolate the compartment, and switch to the aft battery bank. After that, radio silence. Anyone familiar with submarines knew the danger. Flooded batteries produce hydrogen gas. It's odorless, colorless, and explosive. Without perfectly functioning ventilation, the gas can build up unseen. A single spark could trigger a catastrophe. The San Juan had likely become a bomb waiting to ignite. Then came a reckoning. Marcelo Schroer, chief of the General Staff of the Argentine Navy, was dismissed after the San Juan disaster. When questioned by federal judge Marta Yanez in April 2018, he laid blame on his subordinates, saying, quote, One within his management interprets that he's working with people, as I said, with all professional ethical conditions, and that in reality, they won't hide anything or they will not omit any information. They minimize the situation. He revealed key officers had hidden the severity from him, not because of system errors, but human decisions. Schroer's words pointed to a breakdown in trust and communication inside the Navy's command, with subordinates downplaying the danger until it was too late. In a press release, Schroer added, quote, It's a sum of mistakes they made, I have no doubt. By the time the truth came to light, San Juan and her crew were already lost. On November 30th, after 15 agonizing days, the Argentine Navy confirmed what families had feared. Spokesman Captain Enrique Balbi announced the transition from a rescue operation to a recovery effort. The math was undeniable. No crew could survive more than 7 days without air, and that time had long passed. The announcement devastated relatives. Many learned of it not from naval officials, but through news reports. Outrage followed. Luis Tagliapetra, father of missing sailor Alejandro Tagliapetra, said, quote, This measure destroyed the last bit of hope I had. I want to know what happened for real, because I don't believe the official hypothesis at all. They lie to us. With 44 sailors lost, the ARA San Juan tragedy became the worst Argentine naval disaster in peacetime. It surpassed even the 1949 sinking of the minesweeper ARA Fournier. Globally, it had the highest number of casualties for a submarine loss since China's Type 35G submarine 361 vanished in 2003. As reality set in, hope gave way to mourning. Naval veterans gathered silently at memorials, acutely aware of what it meant to perish sealed inside a steel hull under thousands of meters of crushing pressure. The San Juan was somewhere out there, shattered, hidden in the blackness of the South Atlantic, her crew lost in the deep. Recovering a sunken submarine is among the most daunting challenges in maritime history. Even advanced navies with unlimited resources have often failed. The French submarine Eurydice, lost in 1970, wasn't found for 53 days, despite sinking near the French coast. Another French vessel, Minerva, disappeared in 1968 and wasn't found until 2019, over half a century later. The nuclear-powered USS Scorpion also vanished in 1968 and took 5 months to locate, even with help from the US Navy's SOSUS acoustic network. The Israeli submarine INS Dakar, lost once again in 1968, remained undiscovered until 1999. Australia's AE-1 had been missing since 1914 and was finally located in 2017, after more than a century of failed expeditions. These precedents made clear that San Juan might remain lost for years, perhaps forever. By early 2018, the massive international response had largely wound down. Argentina was left with dwindling assets and few good options. In desperation, the government offered a $5 million reward for any information leading to the submarine. It wasn't enough. In September 2018, US-based deep-sea search firm Ocean Infinity stepped forward with a proposal. They would search for the San Juan on a no-find, no-fee basis. If they succeeded, they would earn a substantial payout. If they failed, they would walk away with nothing. Their vessel, Seabed Constructor, deployed just weeks later in October. On board was some of the most advanced search equipment on the planet. Autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, scanned the ocean floor with high-resolution sonar, able to operate at depths that would crush any manned submarine. Unlike older systems, they could sweep vast areas simultaneously with precision mapping. Previous searches covered the area multiple times but missed the wreck, but none had Seabed Constructor's advanced gear. On November 16, 2018, 1 year after the San Juan vanished, Ocean Infinity found something. A sonar operator detected a metallic object nearly a kilometer beneath the surface. It measured about 60 meters, consistent with San Juan's dimensions, and lay in a rugged undersea canyon 500 kilometers off the Patagonian coast. The terrain had likely hidden it from earlier, less capable scans. Remotely operated vehicles confirmed the find. The submarine had imploded. Debris was scattered across an 8,000 square meter patch of seafloor. The pressure hull had collapsed violently. Photos returned to the surface showed crushed steel and twisted wreckage, a grim image of what had once been a functioning warship. Ocean Infinity CEO Oliver Plunkett addressed the public, quote, "We sincerely hope that locating the resting place of the ARA San Juan will be of some comfort to them at what must be a profoundly difficult time." He added, quote, "This was an extremely challenging project, and today's successful outcome, following the earlier search operations, firmly endorses our technology." Ocean Infinity's contract awarded them $7.5 million for the find, a figure many saw as excessive, despite the cost and complexity of deep ocean operations. What's more, the CEO's public statement, praising the search as an endorsement of his firm's technology, was also felt to be in poor taste. For families, the discovery offered some relief, but no peace. They now knew where their sons, husbands, and fathers rested. But grief, finally unshakable, replaced the ache of uncertainty. Luis Antonio Nice, father of crewman Luis Nice, expressed the emotional burden, quote, "We do know they can get it out, because Ocean Infinity told us they can, that they have equipment. If they send him off, I want them to bring him back to me." But recovery at such depths, nearly 1,000 meters down, is rarely attempted. The wreck would remain, like so many lost submarines, entombed on the ocean floor. The search was over. The questions were not. After the country's defense minister dismissed Navy Commander Marcellus Schroer, further investigation revealed details that complicated the tragedy's political backdrop. It had come out that on November 4th, second non-commissioned officer Roberto Daniel Medina had sent a message to his sister Jessica, saying, quote, "On Monday, there was a British helicopter after us, and yesterday the Chilean. There's a lot of movement over here." The message, later made public, confirmed what officials had initially downplayed. San Juan had been tasked with surveillance near the Falkland Islands, monitoring British military and civilian traffic. The revelation added a volatile geopolitical layer, turning a naval disaster into a potential diplomatic flashpoint. The British government acknowledged the routine monitoring, but kept its response measured, avoiding public escalation. Other initial theories about external attacks were quickly ruled out once the wreck was thoroughly examined. Underwater photographs showed no signs of damage from any collision or assault, putting to rest rumors about encounters with Chinese fishing vessels or engagement by British forces. The submarine's final location matched her planned route and last known communication point, confirming that she had sunk where she was supposed to be operating. The initial reports from the last transmission of water flooding the battery compartment were later confirmed, definitively identifying the core technical failure as seawater entering the submarine through a malfunctioning snorkel valve. This critical component allows diesel submarines to run their engines while remaining just below the surface. Whether the valve failure resulted from a mechanical defect or human error remained unclear, but seawater reaching the battery compartment triggered a deflagration, combustion traveling at nearly the speed of sound, but without the characteristic explosion of military ordnance. This internal blast would have been instantly fatal for the crew. Afterward, the submarine likely lost all control and descended beyond her crush depth, where her hull could no longer withstand the immense pressure and imploded catastrophically. The deflagration was only the final trigger in a long chain of failures. Defense Minister Oscar Aguad blamed both technical flaws and human error. The battery compartment fire wasn't handled with urgency, despite a similar incident back in 1995, a warning that hadn't been acted on. Aguad also criticized the 2008-14 refit. 625 documented repairs were made, but the sub was still not fully operational. Naval experts pointed to poor crew training and a lack of clear emergency procedures, especially for battery flooding. Basic safety protocols, meant to be second nature, had failed when it mattered most. Weather added a lethal edge. A powerful storm system lashed the South Atlantic during San Juan's final hours. Surfacing might have helped the crew manage the flooding, but rough seas made that option too dangerous. Submerged, they had to fight a growing crisis, cut off from help and fresh air. On October 24, 2021, a monument at Mar del Plata Naval Base honored the 44 lost, a stark reminder of the dangers of the silent service.